Who doesn't like walking into a movie theater and catching your favorite movie? Or what about sitting back on that big comfy couch watching an episode of NBC's Third Watch? How about a fully stunt-loaded, action-packed martial arts film? You know what? You don't want to miss this. Keep it locked right here. Do what you got to do. Take the remote, throw it out the window. Do whatever you got to do to keep it right here.
This is a level, the show to level your way of thinking about life eternal. Another message, and you can test it. And set that it's going global. It's just a chance for you to see that there's more than what you see. There's new life abundantly. Yeah, it's the Knowledge Factory.
Welcome back to the Knowledge Factory. I'm your host, Scottio Arnold. And today we are sitting with an amazing man, one of the best for me, Mr. Richard Norton. Richard, how are you?
Scotty, I'm very well. Good to be with you.
This is actually a dream of mine, sir, and I got to tell you, I've been wanting to meet you for a long time, and this is just awesome. Thank you for taking the time to sit with us and talk to us about what things are going on right now. What I'd like to start with is, now, I've never been to Australia, and could you for a moment just kind of bring us there? We hear so much about it. We hear it's beautiful. What is Australia like?
Well, it depends where you are. It's a little bit, as you know, Scotty, I've lived in the United States for the last 30 years on and off. I was born here, though, in Melbourne, Australia. But I find it's kind of similar in the sense that depending on where you are in the country, it can be quite different. Like, as we know, LA compared to New York, or you go over to the South, as compared to somewhere like Texas. It varies, and Australia can be like that. Having said that, if you were to go to Sydney or Melbourne for me has always had a San Francisco feel to it. We've got a lot of Victorian architecture. In winter, we get a lot of rain and mist and fog and everything like that. But it's also much more of an arty sort of city.
Okay.
If you go to Sydney, then that reminds me very much of Los Angeles. Obviously not on the same scale, but it's a beachside city. The weather's a little warmer, it's a little more subtropical, and then when you get up into the coast, like the Gold Coast and Queensland, that's a lot more, in the subtropical zone. So you got places there that could even look like Florida.
Do you have a preference? Do you like Los Angeles as opposed to Australia, California and Australia? Do you have a preference of where you like to be at all times?
Oh, look, as anyone would know, there's nothing like home, wherever home may be. I'm an Australian and I grew up here, and I must say that every time my wife and I come back, it's like, oh, wow, this is so nice. I would imagine a certain amount of that's got to do with family and friends and the whole emotional recall of growing up here. Right now, at this stage of my life, I must say I'm feeling very comfortable being home in Melbourne. There's a lot of beautiful gardens and trees. It's very green, and and again, we're very much into the sort of look of things, as in architecture, and LA can get a little bit sort of dull and grey for me sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't want to put it down, because I said it's been great. I've had a great life there.
I read where at 17 years old you had already achieved black belt status, and you were a senior chief instructor to over 500 schools throughout the nation. Now, when did you actually start martial arts?
And by the way, just to correct that, it'd be a little older. When I became a chief instructor for Zendo Kai, I would have been around, let's see, what is it, 72? Yeah, no, they're probably close to right, 18, 19 years of age.
Okay.
We started those schools in 1970. I started martial arts at 11, and judo was what I started with. And one of the reasons for that is that that's pretty much all there was around. The only thing I remember being aware of, and I've often said this, it's on the back of comic books, you'd see ads for judo.
Right.
Defeat 5 opponents with a flick of a finger. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And there was a kid that moved into a house opposite to where I lived in Croydon, which is a suburb of Melbourne. And he was disappearing 2 nights a week. And I said, hey, Morris, what's going on? Where are you going? We should be playing pool or whatever. And he was going to a judo class. And I was like, oh, wow, I want to do that. So I went along and started doing judo and loved it. But I must say, I was so skinny and small as an 11-year-old that, I was like one of those cartoon characters getting pitched from one end of the dojo to the other. So there was another gentleman named John Rowe who had also been learning karate out of a book, out of Masayama's book, Kyokushinkai. And he was showing me little bits and pieces, and I was very intrigued with that. Well, anyway, he suddenly one day at judo class said there's a karate school opening up a few miles from where I live. So we all went down and had a look. The gentleman's name was Tino Severano, and he introduced a style called Goju-Ryu into Australia. And I had a look at a very basic demonstration, and it just blew me away. And I looked at that and I said, that's what I want to do. I honestly believe 48 years later of being involved in this, that it was what I was meant to do with my life. It just had that mystical lure to it that I was just attracted to. Just honestly, from the art point of view, even as a young kid, I could understand the possible journey and what I was getting into.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Can we do this again?
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you. Thank your wife, Richard, so much for this time, and we'll be talking soon.
Lovely. All right. Thanks to all the audience out there. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
A level that should level your thinking about life eternal. A message and you can test it and accept that it's going global. It's a chance for you to see that there's more than what you see.
What are you looking at?